Hello there, and as usual, I'm Aaron from Last Stand Gamers, and welcome. So you're probably wondering what we're doing out in deep space with a pipe and a few of these red sort of shell type things. So I had a bit of spare time today, so I started constructing something that has a little bit of a game changer, you could say. So I've actually been developing shells with an actual primer and a detonator so we can actually propel things with explosives. So I'm just going to go through the stages of how I came across this idea. So first of all, I was messing around in a tunnel like this, and what actually happened was I placed a block at the end like so, and then I placed this, and then there was a shelf. I was building a shelf here basically. So I then put on my shelf a few missiles I put on my shelf like so. You can probably see where this is going now. And then what happened was I had the assault rifle on one of the keys, and as I was meant to actually click to activate a control panel, I clicked and this happened. Do you see that? I think we have just made the first step in some sort of explosive primer, maybe. I'm not too sure. Obviously, the problem was it's destroyed this area here, and it didn't do too well in the factory over there, as I'll show you a clip in a few moments. So then I moved on to the next concept, building it into a shell. So the idea would be loading this shell into a cannon like this and then firing it so the cannon doesn't actually take any damage. So this was the research on this. So the initial one, what we basically had here was we had a primer at the back and we fired it like so. But the small warhead, as you can see, doesn't have enough power, so it only can propel it at a slow speed. So now I'm at a dilemma. We've got the shell concept that works really well, but the problem is, how are we going to propel them shells at a great speed? Like, it's not as simple as you may think. Like, I'll just demo this. What you could do is, you're probably thinking, is to cut that off and then just basically put more explosives on the back. But from what I've researched, that doesn't actually increase it. So this shell here is like a traditional sort of shotgun pellet. We've got 3 sort of dart sort of rounds in there, and we're going to fire it. I'll just show you quickly. Right, so you can see it's just not that effective. We can't get them up to a fast enough speed. With these small little warheads, we can only get it up to around 5 or 8 meters a second. With the large warheads, we can get up to a much greater speed. So that means we have to build a much bigger shell. So I'll get back to you shortly. Right, so I've built myself a simple breach to close behind the shell, so when I actually detonate it, all the force will be forced that way, rather than back out and waste the force that we need. I don't know how the physics exactly work, and hoping that logic is applied and this will work. So the concept of this little hatch here is we load it down like this. We drop our shell ammunition. So say we want, we'll load this shell with 3 rounds up, shall we? So we'll put 1 there, and we'll just, oh no, screw it, we'll go full out. We'll go with as many as we can possibly fit down the hatch. So yeah, we'll just drop 5, I think it is, we can possibly put in here. So 2 more. Right, so that's 5 shells going to be dropped down into the shell. And then, oh Jesus! That was not a smart thing to do. That was not a smart thing to do. That is why you do not overpack your warheads. That gave me a right jump. Is everything okay though down here? No. Right, so obviously I learnt the hard way with that, and before I manage to push the limits, I need to know the limits. So we're going to just drop 1 shell in here just to make sure everything works before we go up to any more in number. So we're just going to put 1, confirm, and then drop. So we drop that into position, and then we just lower the door. Thank you. And that is pretty much fine. And then we're just going to remove the gravity, and we're going to start the door operation. So to set this door up, we need to go to the door settings. No, we don't. We need to go to the rotor settings. I lied. And then we need to start adjusting the upper and lower limit. So we need to set this to a 0 if we can. There's a 0, and now a 90. So 90, 90 please, please. There we go. And then we need to open up the door ever so slowly just to make sure everything's working fine. So the door's going to open up. There we go. Have I set the braking torque? No, I haven't. That would have been a crucial mistake. So I'm just going to explain the system in here. Basically, we have the primer there. Then we have a firing pin. The firing pin is going to hit the primer, and then going to basically launch this shell with whatever's inside it that way. So I'm a bit worried that the actual back blast is going to most likely blow the door off, and if it does, then we'll just have to live with it. But I'm going to add the firing pin extender on the end there, and I'm also going to do this to possibly stop any incident. So hopefully it'll swing around, hit that, and it'll be happy days as the shell gets sent downrange. Okay, so we're only looking to actually fire the little torpedo. We're not looking to fire the big shell that is actually in. That's just going to help it launch down. So we're going to close this door, rotor, and we need it on a quite heavy hitter. So let's actually put that to about that, and then the door should close and detonate the explosives. Hold on, let's say it a bit faster. There we go. Fingers crossed on the detonation. Okay, we got a detonation, but did we get the actual shell to launch? That's the question. I probably should have been watching the shell and not watching the door. Right, so that bit's launched, but I'm not bothered about that. I'm looking for the actual missile itself. So the missile clearly had gone so fast, it's projected out the target. So I think what we're going to have to do is set up an actual target here, so we can actually hit it. And then we know what sort of damage we're actually doing with this weapon, or if it's actually even firing. Right, so we set ourselves a little target up, and we have got just the basic cannon. I'm not going to fire that again because I don't think that works at all, to be honest. It seems to not even launch the projectile how we want it to launch. So what I'm going to do at the back here is double reinforce it with armor, then follow it up with an explosive cube, like so. So this might be a one-shot weapon, but we're going to see how much how dangerous it actually is with this, and get as much out of one shot as we possibly can, and have like a giant sort of shotgun effect. So we'll remove that gravity generator, and then all we want to do is basically get this in place here, and we want to start putting our shells into position. So we're going to want that there, and we're going to need, how many should we have? Should we take, say, 4? There's no gravity, so we shouldn't have that explosion that we had earlier. So we'll have one there, and then we'll move a little bit, and then we'll have one here, and then we will have another one here, and then, oh, that one's moving. That's probably not a good idea. Right, and then we'll go with this quick last one there. So we're going to detonate this with the machine gun once again. There's a machine gun, and we're going to see how much damage it actually does to the target. So there's the are we ready to launch this? I think we are. So let's fire that guy. Right, so shells have launched. How much damage did it do on the target impact? No damage. No damage. What is this? Have we even dented it? We even dented it? Right. So we're going to need some more explosive firepower to get them up to a higher velocity, I'm guessing. Or maybe we could try firing something different. I'm not too sure. Right, so we know that the actual missile pods themselves are not the answer to the question, but I've loaded it with a rather large rock, and we're going to see if that is the answer. No, it is not the answer. The rock must be too heavy. Let's try it with a lighter rock. Right, so we're going to try putting in a lighter rock. Okay, and then we're going to fire this, so let's fire it. It's just not affecting it. It's just not affecting it like the other objects would. What can we do? So to conclude this experiment, we found out that you can actually launch objects with the warhead to some success, but the objects are not heavy enough to even penetrate the lightest of armors. So in the way it looks cool, and it could work in the future, but until we get an object that we can actually launch at such a velocity to do damage, it's not going to make any difference. So I'm just going to fire this to make one last experiment. So there it goes, right at the target. That's quite some speed it's travelling as well. If a normal block was travelling at that speed, it would penetrate, but we've not even made a dent in the armour. You can see there, it's just going to float away. So I'm going to switch back to the incident where I discovered this happening, and I hope you enjoy. It was pretty scary for me, but I'm sure you'll see the bright side of it. So I've not managed to get this operational yet. I tried to get a pulley going through here, but it just kept snapping and didn't really work. But anyway, I'll just take you over to the inventory. So what I've started to do is stock some of these explosive cubes as well, so we can actually move them out. And they couldn't fit on the shelf, so I've actually put them up here. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to move outside and copy and paste the station. Oh, damn it, I pressed control. control fires the fucking gun. Fucking great. 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 Now the whole the arms development facility part has just exploded. Why does that have to happen? Oh my god. Have I got a save? The problem is, when was my last save? Right, I'm gonna have to...